Guys, I've got a two-part lesson for you today. This is going to be really cool because I'm going to show you how to play a specific riff, progression, but I'm actually going to show you 3 different ways to play this. Now, here's where the second part of this comes in, and it'll make sense as we get to each part. I'm going to break each part down for you. You're also going to get some recording tips on how to record that second guitar track. So you got one guitar that you record, right? You play that one guitar, or if you're playing live, that second guitar, sometimes you might want it doing some different things that complement that initial riff. So anyway, we're gonna break all this down. We're gonna go through this together, but I don't really want to play the initial riff for you. Let me call Gunnar because he actually wrote this riff. Let's see if we can get him on the phone real quick. Hello? Gunnar, dude, what's going on, man? I was looking for you downstairs, couldn't find you. Actually, it sounds like you're driving. Oh yeah, I'm in the car, man. I'm just going to mail your masterpiece CDs. I saw some orders come in. I figured I'd take care of that for you. Oh man, I almost forgot about that, man. Thank you so much, dude. I really appreciate that. Dude, no problem. Hey, dude, so when you get back, come on up to the studio. I want you to play that riff. Well, actually, those 3 riffs that you were playing for me earlier. I want our audience to hear this and learn it. All right, I'll see you when I get back. Awesome. See you soon, man. Real quick, shameless plug. I do have my masterpiece CDs back in stock. I know they're out of stock for like 3 months, so that shipment finally came back in. There's a link in the description of the video. While we're talking about the description of the video, I've got more links down there. One more of those is my Patreon. If you're a Patreon supporter, you're actually going to be getting the tabs and the backing tracks for everything that we're about to go through. And I'll explain a little bit more about the backing tracks at the end of the lesson here. So that's our first riff. Now, a couple things I want to point out here. One, we are in the key of F sharp minor. We're not playing the typical E minor, A minor, or G or whatever. There's a reason for that, and it's going to be the same reason why we're playing these power chords and the riffs here on the D and the G strings. We're not playing our typical heavier strings per se for this riff here. Now, part of that is because this is more of kind of like an 80s metal style riff, and those D and G strings, they just sound 80s metalish, right? But the other reason, and more so for the key here, the F sharp minor, is because you may not be used to playing in this key, and I like to get you, or like to get myself, all of us, outside of the norm sometimes, kind of outside of that box. You know, we're used to going to that, right? We're used to just playing the heaviest notes possible here. But now we're breaking away from that, and we're in a different key. So I just kind of wanted to point that out before we get further into this lesson, and just to let you know how valuable this particular lessons and lessons like this, how valuable they will be, because it's getting you outside of that box. You're going to also learn your fretboard much, much better. Let's start out by assessing the chord structure to this. Okay, there's 3 power chords, so that simplifies everything. We're playing an F sharp minor, we're going to a D, then we're going to an E. So this is the chord structure here. I like to start out with that because once we know the chord structure, it's like, okay, I've got that. It makes everything else a little bit easier to learn. So now let's get into the actual riff, okay? So let me just play, since we kind of went over some preliminary stuff, let me play it out here, just out in the open for you so you can hear what it sounds like. this is really, really simple. So number one, we're keeping it choppy all the way through. We've got like a constant palm muting rhythm going on throughout this thing. The only thing we're doing different here is we're playing a variation of each power chord one time there. So what you're going to do, you're going to bar, you're going to use that first finger to bar the 4th fret on both strings there, okay, on the D and G strings. Because as you're playing your power chord here, I'm going to take my pinky off, so that's barred, because I'm going to play those 2 notes before I go back. So again, it's like this. Okay, we're going to apply that concept with the rhythmic pattern, the rhythmic palm muting there. We're applying that concept to the other 2 power chords as well. So that simplifies everything. Now when we go to the D power chord, it's going to sound like this. Because of the key we're in, our variation there, it's not a whole step back, right? It's like a half step. So here, when we're on frets 4 and 6, right, when you took away that second note and played the variation there, you're a whole step up. Well, here you're not, and that's because of the key that we're playing in. And I'm not going to dive into the theory part and all that good stuff, but just know that this is going to be back and forth between frets 1 and 2 here, okay? Lastly, we have the E power chord, and we're going to apply the exact same concept, and that's going to work out similar to the F sharp minor or F sharp power chord that we're playing, okay? Now, lastly, there's a little riff I play at the end. Okay, that's pretty much it. Let's run through this pattern one more time before we go to the next variation, which is going to be pretty cool. Here's where we get to the second guitar tip, and if you're recording a second guitar, which I encourage you to always record 2 rhythms, we'll get more into this at the end of the video. I'll talk a little bit more about it, give you some more recording tips. What we're doing, you hear, like if you're listening with 2 speakers or headphones or whatever, you're hearing that first rhythm that we learned. You're kind of hearing that over here in the left speaker, but in the other speaker, you're hearing another guitar doing something a little different. Now, the beauty of this part here, what you're about to learn, is it's actually very, very simple, right? You hear the different guitars, but this second guitar is really playing the same pattern, the same chords, the same thing, but it's leaving out the choppy palm muting there, okay? Instead, we're just letting those chords ring out. So let me go through this. I'm not going to bother with showing you the frets and all that, because again, we just learned it. It's going to be the same thing. Actually, before we play the pattern, the difference, listen to the difference in what I'm doing. I'll play what we just learned with the F sharp, and I'll play how we're going to play it in this variation here. That is the only difference. So this pattern we're learning now is actually easier than the initial pattern. Okay, so let's run through this just one time real quick before we move on to the next one, because we're gonna get our fingers a little bit more involved in this third variation next. Okay, but here's the second way to play this. Once again, you heard two guitars. You heard that core rhythm that we started out with, but then you hear a second guitar doing yet again something different, which you're about to learn. Now, this second guitar, this time we get a little bit more involved, and we're actually, instead of just playing power chords, we end up with the power chords as you'll find out here, but we're playing a melody with this, okay? We're actually playing a single note pattern, several single note patterns throughout this riff here that's complementing what that first guitar is doing. So let me go through this real quick. Let me let you hear this without the full mix, and I think it'll help you understand the pattern a little bit better, and then we'll break it down. Okay, so here's what I'm playing. Okay, so that's what we're doing. Now, couple that in again, if you want to go back and listen to the full mix there, couple that with what that first guitar is doing, you've got this really cool sound. And that's the whole point of this lesson, of showing you these three ways to play this pattern here, because you can do so much with this. And again, we'll talk more about it in a second here. So I will be starting, I'll be starting the pattern out by playing the first note of the power chord that we're playing. So we've got our F sharp, we've got a D and an E. So those patterns will start with those notes as if you were playing that power chord, right? So you start on the D string, 4th fret, and then we're gonna go 4, 6, 7, 4. Okay, and then I go kind of merge back into what that first guitar is doing, kind of matching that. So it's like this. And then we follow suit with the rest of the pattern. Same thing. The next is going to be our D, right? So we're going to play that open D, and then we're going to go 2, 4, back to open, and then go kind of matching the pattern up with what the first guitar is doing, like this. Next we go to the E, and that's going to be pretty much the same thing. Once again, we're starting out with that note of the power chord, that root note there. We're on the 2nd fret of the D string here. We're going to go 2, 4, 6, back to 2, back to our power chord there. You can play it like this. You notice I use my 3rd finger to slide from the 4th fret to the 6th fret. I like how that sounds a little better as opposed to just going to that note with another finger, your pinky finger. So let you hear the difference real quick. I didn't plan to put this into the lesson, but I like to throw these little things out there as we get into this, because I think they'll help you. So listen to the difference in the two ways I'm going to play this. There's no right or wrong way, because this isn't like a real song, but just listen to the difference here. So when I'm using my pinky, when I'm just playing the notes, 2, 4, 6, right, and then going back to 2, to me it sounds a little robotic, and having that slide in there from 4 to 6, it just gives it a little bit more passion, if you want to call it that, a little bit more life, I guess. So again, this is just something to think about as you're playing, and like, okay, well, what if I do this instead of that? If it just sounds kind of dull or boring, it's like, let me try to play it a different way, and you come up with something that sounds cooler. So last part of this riff, okay, and then I've got some other cool stuff I want to share with you, but last part of the riff. So the main guitar does this right here. Without the whammy, I just felt like doing that. But instead, all right, this guitar is going to do something different this time around, okay? We're going to do this instead. Okay, what we're doing is we're basically harmonizing. We're having that second guitar harmonize. Again, go back and listen to the full mix. I'll have timestamps where each lesson starts in the description of the video, so you'll be able to go back and listen to each, and that's where the full mix will be. So basically all I'm doing is I'm harmonizing by playing the third note up from each original note. So in other words, we start the riff here. We're on the 7th fret, so 1, okay, 7th fret, 2, 3, okay, I'm counting up 3 notes. Now again, I'm not going to go into it because it could be a half note depending on what key you're playing in. I just know where to go in this case, but I'm going to the 11th fret. So this note harmonizes with the note I'm going to play after it. Okay, so the notes that we're playing for that second pattern, the harmonizing pattern, that's going to be, again, we're on the D string, frets 11, 9, 7, 9, 6. Now, let me explain the recording process, but before we get into that, for my Patreon supporters, real quick here, guys, I'm giving you the backing track. So you're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 backing tracks. And let me explain how this works. So you'll get a full backing track of each variation that we just went through, okay, the full mix there. You'll also have a backing track with just the bass and the drums, so you can play whatever you want to along with those. And the 5th track, you're going to have a backing track with just the core riff that you learned in the first lesson in this video, and that's going to be panned all the way to the right. So if you put that into your studio, okay, have a guitar track on and pan that guitar track all the way to the right. That way you'll get that full stereo effect, and then you can practice the other 2 riffs that we learned, the other 2 progressions, or you can make up your own. So all of that's on the Patreon page right now. There's a link in the description of this video. Of course, I'll have the tabs there as well. Now, I sort of went over the recording process just now, but real quick, what I do when I record guitars, and I know I've said this on countless other videos, but I like to point this out for the new folks. I always record 2 rhythm guitar tracks, like all the time. It just makes your overall mix just sound so much more full. It just adds more life to it, and I like to hard pan each track. What that means, and I'll give you a little image of the studio here. I take that first guitar track after I record it, and I'll pan it all the way to the left. Then I'll open up a new guitar track. Okay, this is guitar number 2, and I'll go ahead and pan that track all the way to the right. And that way, as I'm recording that track, I can hear how it will sound in the full mix with both guitars. And it's really cool in your studio monitors, or if you got headphones on, because you really get that stereo effect. And that's how I keep the mix from there on. I have those 2 guitar tracks, and I hard pan each one. So that's just a recording tip that I know I've given in many videos, and of course I'll give that again in many videos to come. Sometimes it doesn't hurt to hear the same thing over and over, because it kind of drills it in your head. It's like, okay, this is what I want to do. And have you ever sat down and it's like, I want to do this, but I can't remember that method? Well, I'll probably repeat this in more videos to come. Now, the second part of that though is I often like to do something a little different with that second guitar like we just did. You know, the first lesson, you just learned the riff, right? Both guitars doing the same thing there. But then the second riff, we did a little something different. We just kind of held those chords out without that second guitar being as choppy. So that blended in quite nicely. Now we get to the third variation. Well, we added some riffs to that thing, to that second guitar track. So man, you've just got all these different things you can do with your guitar tracks as a band. If you're playing live, you can do this, or if you're recording, if you're just recording by yourself in your home studio or whatever, you know, record that first guitar track, but then write some variations of that riff, of that progression to record for your second guitar. Now, one more thing I want to point out here, you don't have to always do something different for that second guitar track. So, for example, you could go back and you could play the first part of the song with just the riff, right? The core riff. Both guitars doing the same thing, but then let's say that's the verse. The second part of that verse, maybe then have that second guitar break off and do something a little different, like riff 2, the version 2 or version 3. You can just kind of compile different things together, and this just gives your music more variety. It makes it, I guess, more desirable to listen to, because you hear something going on, but then you hear something a little different happen, although it's kind of the same but different, right? But it just sounds so cool. It just gives it so much more life. Or maybe some songs or some parts of songs you might want both guitars doing something different. You notice in riff number 3, we did a little harmony with that actual riff. So I like to harmonize my guitars more than often, especially when I'm playing single note patterns like that. It's really cool to have that second guitar harmonizing. Quick tip on that, what I normally do is I'll just play the third note, right? So if your note is, let's say, you know, this fret right here, I'll count, you know, 2 steps more from that to make that third note, and I'll just figure out what notes go with that, okay? And I'm not going to get into the theory and all that stuff, but you know what I mean. You find a note that harmonizes with it. So as you record, or after you've recorded that first guitar track, you've got a single note pattern there, open that second track up and then start trying to harmonize with that. You'll eventually figure it out. So I know I kind of elaborated on that point there, but this stuff is so much fun, man. This stuff is just like when you start writing and then you start coming up with different ways to play the riff and you start merging all this stuff together. Oh my God, it gives your music so much more life. So I just wanted to leave you with a bunch of information here today on this video, and hopefully you're still watching. For those still watching, thank you, I appreciate that. Guys, we'll wrap things up real quick. Make sure you please like this video. YouTube likes when you like my video. I like it as well. And that helps the channel grow, which I appreciate. Please make sure you're also subscribed if you're not. Guys, you know I'm always putting out content like this. I've also been putting out some live content as well, like the video right before this one. I gave tips on, I'll put it up here, I gave tips on how to organize your gear playing live. A lot of you know I've been playing a lot of live, mainly acoustic shows, right? I'm just playing solo, I'm a solo act, right? I'm not playing metal, my normal metal up there, but I'm just playing a lot of acoustic covers, and I'm starting to write some stuff. I also break out the electric. I bring that because I do some looping as well, and I'll like loop a rhythm and then play some lead over. So I've been giving you guys a lot of that content lately as well, and more to come. So we're kind of just expanding all over the place with music here, and hey, it's what we love, it's what we do, and I just want to share that part of my music life with you as well, because it's become such a big part of my career now. So you know, I'm very grateful for that, to be able to record music in here and produce heavy metal and do these videos for you, while at the same time, you know, go out and play these live gigs. Even if I'm playing cover songs, go out and play these live gigs and then share that content with you as well. So I really hope you guys are enjoying that. All right, guys, I'm rambling at this point, so thank you again for all the support. Don't forget to check out all the links in the description of this video. Got a lot of good stuff down there. Of course, my Patreon, my CD, I've got my shop link down there. I've also got links to my guitar courses if you guys haven't gotten that. I also have the free metal riffs and licks practice guide. So if you don't have that, get my guide. Let that be the first link you click. Get the free stuff first, and if you decide you want to buy stuff from me after that, hey, I appreciate that. That just helps me. But always get the free stuff first to see, hey, okay, yeah, I want more. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching my video. You know what to do. Until next time, keep it metal.